And let us hear our scriptures this morning from Isaiah and from John. From Isaiah, for Zion's sake, I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not rest scriptures this until her vindication shines out like the dawn, and her salvation like a burning torch. The nations shall see your vindication, and all the kings your glory. And you shall be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will give. You shall be a beautiful crown in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of your God. You shall no more be termed forsaken, and your land no more be termed desolate. But your name shall be called, My delight is in her, and your land married. For Lord delights in you, and your land shall be married. For as a young man marries a young woman, so shall your builder marry you. And as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall you, God, rejoice over you. And from John, on the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, They have no wine. And Jesus said to her, Woman, what concern is that to me and to you? My hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, Do whatever he tells you. Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rite of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, Fill the jars with water. And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, Now draw some out and take it to the person in charge of the banquet. So they took it. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that person called the bridegroom and said to him, Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now. Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. May these words from Isaiah and John inspire us to live for love.
Thanks be to God. Remember hearing as a child, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It turns out that may be not the best, or at least the most complete advice to give to children, because children will grow up to be adults. And as adults, if we do not speak up when it is uncomfortable, the consequences can be terrible. Church has been unspeakably guilty of this, or at least mainline Protestant church has. It probably starts with good intentions. We aren't those fire and brimstone judgmental types. We're the big tent, room for everyone people. So we smile and we say welcome, and we're too polite to take a moral stand when it is the imperative of our faith. And in fact, we will go to great lengths to silence our fellows. And some of what lies behind that passive niceness is much harder to explain away. White Protestants walked away from the civil rights movement because retreating was less upsetting to us than saying something that wasn't nice to other white people. We have foundered in the doldrums of credibility ever since. And now we're waterlogged and we're drowning. Isaiah often uses personification as a tool to make a point. It helps people understand and invest in the systems of which they are a part. Personifying a whole nation is bound to fall short, but that is what Isaiah does, and the exercise does reveal some difficult truths. Over the course of Isaiah, God and Israel have a confusing set of personified relationships: groom and bride, father and child, mother and child, and those relationships are not always healthy. God being furious with Israel, Israel being dismissive of God, God punishing Israel, Israel being apathetic and uninvested. You get the point. But if we're honest, we are all in some strange relationships right now. Personification can just be illuminating. Years ago, I wrote an essay titled, "If the Church Were a Man." While I'm sure it isn't comfortable to hear, I argued then and still largely believe, if the church were a man, every woman would tell her best friend to dump him. We don't have time to fully unpack that one today, but it is worth some more thought. What it does show is a role reversal. When we use personification, we're looking first at our relationship to the organizations and communities we're a part of. Then we have to ask ourselves about God's relationship to the personified institution. So in this example, if I can assess my relationship to the institutional church as being at least problematic and possibly much worse, what then does that say about the relationship between the organized church and God? If Isaiah were writing the story, what do we imagine God would have to say about the choices organized church has made? Sobering. So, beloved, I want to strongly suggest we are in an abusive relationship with our national order. This isn't anything new. It's just that this might be the day we realize we should probably get out. America, our bridegroom, has taken each of our dowries and squandered them on weapons and war. America has exploited our every resource and increasingly works to gaslight, groom, and isolate us. America has convinced us, like an abusive partner or parent, that if each of us were better, smarter, more independent, then America wouldn't have had to act like that. See what you made me do. And of course, America will remind us how lucky we are to be in this relationship. America was captain of the football team, after all, won all the trophies, and is on the cover of every magazine. Don't make America mad or give America reason to question this relationship. No one wants to get dumped. And America has told us so often that no one else will love us. We've come to truly believe it. If each of us is in a relationship with America, can you see how it is a completely toxic one? As I said, there is the other part of this metaphor, the relationship between God and the soul of the nation, which is created by our collective participation. This one makes people, including myself, uncomfortable, because it calls into question whether or not this is a Christian nation, and if so, what flavor of Christian. I'm not ignoring that, but that too is a question for another day. For today, we have Isaiah's description of what God's will for all the nation is, and that is a life of peace and graciousness in which all are able to flourish. God has given us everything we could possibly need and much of what we could ever want. Clean air and water, mountains and valleys, farmland and natural resources, reason and lofty words of promise to aspire to. And we have responded to this incredible generosity like Veruca Salt with the nuclear codes. As a people, we have poured poison into the atmosphere, stolen land we did not need and could have shared, enslaved and dominated, conquered and manipulated other people for gain while insisting we did so to protect freedoms that we ourselves stripped away. Why, in the name of anything and everything holy, would God not be filled with a righteous wrath set to cleanse the earth of us? Us, the one God just keeps coming back to. Two uncomfortable truths. On the one hand, we have allowed ourselves to be victimized by our systems, and no one likes to realize they've been a victim, let alone reckon with the complicity of enabling our own suffering. And in the process of not ending the abuse, we have in turn contributed to the affronts to God committed in our collective name. I think it is more painful for us as church folks because we have to reckon with how, as church, we have largely abandoned the ethics of God while hiding behind the trappings of religion. We have a twofold set of sins to repent of for the good of the world. Which brings us to our final role to fill this morning, the story of the wedding at Cana. Why would a wedding feast have run out of wine quickly? Good wine was a luxury, imported from Italy with high taxes associated, as much as 4 to 5 times the cost of the same wine near Rome. We can assume it was a significant expense to throw this party, but throwing the best party you could was a cultural imperative. This family will have to scrimp and live lean to make up for the expense of offering even a glass or two of a middling vintage to their guests. On the other hand, the Roman garrison would have had plenty of wine, since every soldier received a substantial ration as a part of their wages. It wouldn't have been great wine, but it would have been far better than the posca, vinegar wine, that was typically available to the common people. Mary sees an opportunity for Jesus to finally put all that he has learned and grown to be into practice in a way that directly improves the lives of the people around him. I don't think we should discount that Mary pressures Jesus into his first public act in service of celebrating goodness and love in this life. When there are oppressive systems at play, finding joy and claiming it is an act of resistance and a witness of hope. We have to remember why it matters. Especially in all of this imagery of what a healthy relationship looks like, a wedding is a powerful moment to choose as a first act of ministry. I'm a proponent of humble miracles. So in my mind, the most likely way Jesus accomplished this great feat was by taking the wine from the garrison. They have more than they need, and they've taken all we have and need. So this is a small but potent act of resistance to use the spoils of the oppressor to lavish upon new love. And if you had a friend with a history of being in terribly unhealthy relationships who was trying to break the cycle, wouldn't you take an opportunity to bless them with a little justice and even a bit of luxury? When someone is in an abusive relationship, they have to decide they are done. We all need to help, but aid will only be taken when the person or people have decided to end the cycle. Clergy, teachers, social workers, medical professionals, all of us are mandated reporters. meaning that if we see signs of children being abused by law, we have to inform the authorities. That ethical responsibility extends to adults in dangerous relationships. I want to leave us all with this idea today. As people of faith, seeking to be in right and healthy relationship with God, we are all mandated reporters right now. We have a God-given responsibility to prepare ourselves to end the abusive relationship we are in, helping one another to gain the same readiness. We have a responsibility to report to one another when we are, knowingly or not, participating in the cycle. We have a moral obligation to remind ourselves that we will not keep silent. And then we have to look deep within and to God for courage and strength. We must stand up, speak out, and act for justice and joy. As a follower of Jesus, I will find ways to bring the overflowing cup of love, even in the face of state violence. As a person of sacred worth, I will retain my dignity and advocate for myself and for others. As a citizen of this country, a member of this collective people, I will point out the dangerous hypocrisy and outright assault being committed. And as a mandated reporter, I will not keep silent. If we do this together, it will look more like the celebration, the wedding at Cana, than the torture of the cross. Out of the two, what path feels like a healthy relationship to you? Which path will you choose? Which path will we choose together? And how long will we wait before we make our choice?